Namaskaram, welcome to the fourth video in the questions for congruence series. In the previous three videos, I gave a certain taste of congruence, and in this video, we'll be going deeper. You'll get more insight into what congruence is. And as usual, as it is the questions for congruence series, there is an interesting question for you. So wait for it and let's get into congruence, the physics of psychology. It's very interesting how close physics and psychology are. Let's take the example of Newton's first law of motion, which is also called as the law of inertia. What does it say? It says that an object will be in inertia or in the same state of motion unless a net force is acted upon it. What it means is, let's suppose there is a object and there is a X amount of force which is applied in the right direction and there is X amount of force that is applied in the left direction. So the net force on this object is 0. So this will not move. It will be in inertia. That's what it means. Now it has a very close relationship with how the mind works. Let's take the example of a person who wants to have good career, good finances, and good relationships. And this person also has certain baggage. He has experienced certain things, certain painful situations which are kind of not allowing him to go towards what he actually wants. So it's like this. The person has certain aspirations, and whatever he's experiencing, such as his experiences of failures and mistakes, so they are acting in the opposite direction. So this person is not taking any step further. So this is a good example of what incongruity is. So this is the opposite of congruence. So it means that the person is having a certain split, certain internal conflict, and he is not moving towards what he actually wants. Now, if this person changes his perspective, means if he sees these failures and these mistakes as learnings and as experience, that he has gained a lot of experience and that he can use all these learnings, this experience to go towards what he actually wants. Now, instead of acting in the opposite direction, it is acting towards where he actually wants to go. So now he can take further steps in that direction. So what is congruence? Congruence is a state where there is no internal conflict, where there is alignment. So let's understand this with more examples. So let's take the example of a person who has certain entrepreneurial ideas and he wants to discuss these ideas with others and take inputs, and he wants to mingle with others, be friendly. At the same time, he also has these kind of fears. So if I discuss this with others, what if they steal my ideas? What if they snatch away my opportunities? So what happened? There is incongruity. There is an internal conflict. Now, let's suppose this person gained more insights about how these things actually work. So maybe he comes across a wonderful book such as Lean Startup, which is a very, very good book for anyone who wants to become an entrepreneur. So this book basically says that there are a whole lot of people who just keeps their ideas to themselves. Either they are afraid like this, that okay, if I share with others, others may take away my ideas, or let me work on this more and more and more and more within myself. Let me make a perfect product, and then I'll take it to people. So there are so many people who have wasted a lot of time and effort and resources because of these kinds of things. But what lean startup actually says is, when you have an idea, you make a prototype, a simplified version of it, and take it to people. Let them experience it and take the feedback from them, and then improvise it. Again, you make your prototype better, again take it to people. So again take feedback. So this is one a very important aspect of what the lean startup book says, the lean methodology. So once a person gets more insight in this way, then again whatever those insecurities that the person was previously experiencing, now they will be converted towards momentum, towards what he actually wants. So again, the person can be congruent towards what he actually wants to do. Okay, now let's take another example. So let's suppose there is a person who wants to go for walking regularly for health and stuff. So, but the person may be thinking of all these things. Okay, what type of shoes should I wear? And do I have any tracking device like a Fitbit or something? And what kind of food should I eat before walking and after walking? And what if it rains? So all these things are happening in the mind. So it's called chunking too much information. And so because of this, again certain pain will be created. Okay, why all this nonsense? Simply let me not go for walking. But if that person understands what is actually happening in his or her mind and becomes aware of it, then he can do this thinking in a different way. So he can start chunking small bits of information. So instead of thinking all these things, he can see, okay, what is most important. Okay, I need some chapels, and I need some time, and I'll just go. So he's focusing only on little bit of information, and so as he goes in the journey, as he goes for the walking regularly, then on the go, in the process, he can improvise. Maybe he can get some better shoes, and maybe he will look into what kind of foods he need to eat, and maybe buy a tracking device and all. So all these things are useful. But whenever he's thinking of walking, he need not bring all of this at a time and make it an obstacle. So by becoming aware and understanding his thinking process, and by making some changes, again he is becoming congruent towards what he actually wants to do. Okay, so we saw some examples which are more on the lines of the Newtonian physics, or what is called as classical physics, of forces acting in this way, and the opposite force and the net force and all this. So in the evolution of physics, so after what is known as the classical physics and the Newtonian physics, then came the quantum physics. So then it completely changed the way scientists have been looking at things. For example, we got the theory of relativity, E is equals to mc square. So everything that people were seeing, the way they are seeing, for example, they used to see the entire universe as solid matter. But then after the quantum physics came, people were seeing all these things as energy, as vibrations, as waves, quantum packets. So entire thing changed. In the same way, whatever we have been doing, all these calculations of changing perspective, gaining insights, and becoming aware of the thought process, so this is more of the logical thinking. similar to the classical physics. And there is something called intuition. Just like how the quantum physics is a next level to the classical physics, in the same way, the intuition is something that is beyond the logical thinking. What do I mean by this? Let's take Srinivas Ramanujan as an example. He was an extraordinary mathematician, and there are certain incidents which are beyond logical understanding. So Srinivas Ramanujan used to pour mathematics, the theorems and all this stuff, and there are certain math stuff that he poured out, for which he himself doesn't have proper understanding. When people ask, how did this come, do you have any proof for this, he didn't have, and he would say, my Devi told me, the divine has expressed all these things through him. That is what he told. And there is certain stuff which later the scientists began to understand that what Srinivas Ramanujan told is explaining the functioning of the black holes. At a time when people were not even talking about black holes, he wrote the mathematical stuff about black holes. So how can we explain this? I guess we cannot. It is beyond logic. So that is what intuition is. There are many names for this, but for the sake of easy understanding, I am using the words of logical thinking and intuition. And I think this is where the highest and deepest form of congruence comes into picture. So many people, they are only on the logical level. So when we talk about congruence, okay, they want to make certain changes in the way they are thinking, and all that is important. But what many people miss is bringing this congruence, this sync between the logical thinking and the intuition aspect. And in my understanding, the best way I can put is, we need to make ourselves competent enough, to make ourselves fertile enough for the intuition to express through us, to express itself. So for example, Srinivas Ramanujan, so he has certain competence in the mathematics, and the intelligence has expressed, the intelligence which is beyond his own logical understanding has expressed itself through him. So many people have the conflict between these two aspects of the logical thinking and the intuition aspect, but bringing the synchronicity between these two, this is the highest level of congruence. For those of you who are curious and want to explore more about what we just discussed, I encourage you to read this book called Tao of Physics. As you can see, the tagline is an exploration of the parallels between the modern physics and Eastern mysticism. It's written by a scientist, and it's a very famous book. Okay, so now that we have seen various aspects related to congruence, now let's go for the question part, and it's more like a challenge for you. You might have taken certain decisions, I don't know, maybe New Year resolutions or your birthday resolutions, or you thought, okay, I should make this happen in some context, or if you haven't taken any such thing recently, so maybe you can take a decision now. So think about what could be the most important thing that you are not already doing, but if you did, will make enormous impact on your life. So what is that thing? So think about it and commit yourself towards it. So maybe it is something that you are taking a decision now, or maybe you have taken some decision of this kind recently. So now the question or the challenge for you is, you track the progress. How well are you going towards it? And if you are not going, now whatever we discussed related to congruence, now you try to understand what is actually happening within you. So what are those internal conflicts? What are those demons within you which are not enabling you to go forward? And what is it that you can do to become congruent? So this is a challenge for yourself, and to assist you, of course, I made 3 videos before this. You can go through them. So there are some very deep insights related to congruence. So the videos and the blogs and the articles that I attached to the videos, like below the videos. So there are some very useful insights there, and I invite you to go check out my website www.vedavyasnarreddy.com. There are many useful resources there, so make use of them and make this process as your personal laboratory. All the very best. Namaskaram.